Welcome inside a live deep look. It's Wednesday, May 28th, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're not at our usual time slot, but that's because we're coming off the D1 college championships out in Mount Vernon, Washington, just north of Seattle. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Keith Raynor. Keith, we got to enjoy a really fun conclusion to the college season this past weekend, and just everything. The weather was awesome. The venue for semis and finals was awesome. The games were awesome. I mean, we had crazy results in pool play. What more can you ask for?
I think it was Carlton coach Tim Schock who, during one of his interviews, described the tournament as a celebration for his team. And one of my rookie players from the D3 college championships, who had just played with us for Wesley, and also was there for a day of D1. I was sitting with her and I was like asking her what her impression of D1 was, and she was like, D3 really felt like a community, and this feels like kind of like going to a pro sports event. And I thought those were interesting, like kind of contrast and perspective. But I think that what it points at is that it's kind of both. And this really did feel like both a highly competitive event, but also kind of a send-off of a great college season.
For sure. Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button there. I'm going to be honest. I got home at 3 a.m. last night. I'm just like running on adrenaline right now and a lot of coffee. So apologies in advance. Before we get to talking about the tournament in detail, by the way, we did a subscriber bonus out the back segment on Monday night late. So go check that out. I mean, it's almost a full episode of Deep Look just reacting to the tournament. We've got a trivia question of the week.
All right, Charlie, I've got a couple of stats questions for you from college championships history about some of the best individual performances. The amazing William Brody Brotman, who runs Ultimate Dash History, he provided some stats upon request to the folks in our Discord. Another great reason, if you're a subscriber, to get in the Discord. You get some sweet data dumps like this. And Charlie, did you happen to peruse the stats?
I skimmed super fast looking for 2025 notes of relevance, but I did not spend much time on it. No.
Good, I did good because I'm directly ripping from there, so I don't want you to already have the answer. So I want to ask about good. I want to ask about some of the best throwing performances we've seen at nationals. I think this dates back all the way to 2014 and includes both D3 and D1. So I got two questions for you. Because we'll talk about each division. In the men's division, what do you think is the fewest number of turnovers that somebody with over 30 assists has had? So you got to throw over 30 assists. What's the fewest turnovers you think a person like that has had? I'll give you bonus points if you can tell me who it is, even. Or chat. I'm looking at you, chat.
What? Can you tell me the year it happened?
The year? Yeah, I'll give you a hint.
It doesn't really change the answer to the question.
Okay. 2015, this happened.
Okay. I mean, you're going to have some turns with that many assists. There's just no question. I'll say 6. That would be really, really,
6?
really impressive if it is that low.
I see a guess of 4, one of 3 in the chat. Anyone want to guess who it was in 2015?
3 is too low.
I see 7.
2015?
You'd have to be 2015.
I'm guessing it's men's division because there tend to be a little bit fewer turnovers. I will get 2015. Chris LaRock.
Anybody else in the chat?
Am I in the right time frame?
I see LaRock as
there's those kind of numbers.
Very interesting.
Give us the answers, Keith.
I see Hemi Mickle, Nethercutt. You know what?
Mickle was
I'll
out
give
of
you all the
college.
answer.
Mickle graduated in 2014.
Oh yeah, he was 2014 was his last year. All right, I'll give you the answer, but after I tell you about our friends over at Break. It's their 20th anniversary, and they're putting up some small numbers, like this turnover category. They're putting up some small numbers because they dropped the pricing on their core sublimated items. So $30 shorts, $35 short sleeves, $35 reversibles. You're gonna get the same quality, the same amazing customer service, just a lower price. And they're pumping out orders ASAP for teams right now. That's on top of the free giveaways they're doing on Instagram every Friday. So celebrating the 20th anniversary, make sure you're following Breakmark on Instagram. You get free stuff every week. They were even doing some team giveaways, I think, like once a month. So make sure that you're getting in there, and that way you can get the core items, affordable price, get the free stuff too. And that's all courtesy of our friends at Breakmark, who are the official providers for the Western Ultimate League and Premier Ultimate League. All right. You had 6, but the guess in the chat of 7 is correct. However, Charlie, you did nail the individual. It was Chris LaRock with an absolutely astounding number here. Chris LaRock had 40 assists and 7 turnovers.
Oh my God.
Preposterous. 12 goals too. Crazy numbers from Chris LaRock. Women's division.
If I recall correctly, just really quick, if I recall correctly,
yeah,
Chris was a very easy pick for Player of the Year that year. He was unbelievable. I wish Chris was still playing. He basically retired from Frisbee and he like plays some disc golf, but what an amazing college player he was. I mean, FSU was a force basically because of him.
Yeah, his partner is one of my former players. So shout out Chris and Danny. Women's division, same question. But maybe we'll just go for the person. Who do you think is the person who has the fewest assists with 30 plus assists in the women's division?
Fewest turns with 30 plus assists, you mean?
Yes, fewest turns with 30 plus assists.
Volume shooter that doesn't turn it over a lot. I have no idea. I'll say Ella Hansen.
Not quite. Yeah, I actually think you're gonna be like, oh wait, I know. I
go to Cal's page.
Dexter, yes, 31 and 6. That is what is listed here.
40 and 7 is better than 31 and 6, but 31 and 6 is still
amazing. True story.
All right. Well, great stuff. Josie Gillette. That's a good call. All right. I am super excited now to welcome in a newly minted college champion, Declan Miller from Carlton College cut. Declan, congratulations. Thanks for hanging on the line for us for a few minutes there while we chatted trivia. How are you feeling now, just 2 days out of winning a title?
Thanks for having me. Feeling really good. It's been great to come back to campus and see teammates around and just dap each other up and say, what's up, champ? Getting some congratulations from professors and friends and family reaching out. So super happy.
I have to know, are you guys big men on campus? Do people know who you are? Because I know Carlton is it's the #1 Frisbee school. We all know this, but how much of that is known by the general student body?
I would say it's decently known. I think people know we're not NCAA athletes, but definitely people in classes have said congrats to me. The professors were asking how we were doing, and people were watching in class on Monday. There was a couple get-togethers around campus watching both cut and sizz in the finals, on a big screen in a lecture hall. So definitely feels good to be supported by the community, and would definitely say Carlton is a Frisbee school.
Have you Have you cleared this interview with the coaching staff? I know the team was kind of on media blackout prior to this moment. I know it was big, like block out all the noise energy, but
yeah, definitely good for us to have to be internally focused, especially like come nationals with a lot of distractions. Like I think maybe Nate said it in his interview that like we had what we needed in the 37 person circle, and that focus was really central to our success throughout the season and especially nationals. I did check with my other captains and talk to some of the coaches about this to make sure it was okay.
This Carlton team, I want to get to the specifics of this particular tournament in a second, but the team won in 2017, its most recent championship, and it's kind of been tough times for the program in ways for various reasons. You missed nationals a couple times since that point. You got hurt and had to basically miss nationals a couple years ago. COVID derailed the team's opportunity to play for a title in 2021 fall tournament. And, for a program with the kind of legacy that Carlton has, it's been a slow few years. And then now all of a sudden you rocket back to the top, and the future is incredibly bright. And we'll talk about the rookies and all of, the future of this program. But how does it feel to overcome all of the adversity that the team has gone through? Not all of which was while you were there, of course, but to get back to the top of the college mountain.
I think it speaks to the strength of this iteration of the team, but also like the strength of the program as a whole, that like we could rebound so quickly out of what was definitely a down couple of years. And I think like to some extent it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, like that. I know we I think knew going into this nationals that we were a super young team and like hadn't won a bracket game like since 2018. And I think it like gave us something to play for, and was a minus in terms of like missing that experience that some of these other teams might have. But I think like I remember my freshman year, like the senior class that year was incredibly locked in and like lived the values of cut, and like missing nationals their previous year truly like gave them something to fight for. And I think while maybe it hasn't, like the end of season finishes in the past 2 years haven't reflected like the growth that we've had, like we have been building to this year, certainly in my mind since I came my freshman year. And then the second thing I'll add is like just the recruiting efforts, like you said, the incoming infusion of talent, no doubt like propelled us to be successful this year.
I mean, it's no secret, obviously, that you had a really talented recruiting class, and you had over the past few years, and that's been something that's been a part of the culture around Cup. But obviously, a lot of that recruiting also ties back to your old playing days in Seattle. What is it that draws so many top players to Cut? What does that recruiting look like that brings so many players, particularly through that Seattle pipeline, but just to Cut in general?
Yeah, I mean, the Seattle pipeline to Carlton is a pretty well-traveled path. And I think like that familiarity of it is something that like is appealing to people. Like it just seems like a natural thing to do, I think, to be a talented Frisbee player in Seattle and then like consider Carlton for college. I think the size of Carlton is a really unique aspect that like draws some people. I think it both is geographically closer to Seattle. Like there's not a ton of like small liberal arts schools around Seattle, like compared to somewhere like the Northeast. And the like both it being like half the distance and then also having that like Midwest feel, perhaps maybe feels like a more inviting environment for some of these like Seattle high schoolers. And then like lastly, just like the community that is like why I grew up like loving Frisbee in Seattle, I think is, obviously like a little different here, but has a similar feel, where like, and there's 6 Frisbee teams, and the Frisbee feels like a big part of the culture. And it's something that's like celebrated, and that I think is a big draw for a lot of young players, young talented players who are looking to get better and win some championships.
So this season, you start your season, you win a warm up, and you get a nice 3-goal win over UMass. But then you drop games to UMass, Colorado, and Oregon at the next couple events you play at in the regular season. And to me, coming into nationals, Carlton was certainly in the conversation for title contenders, but I had you on the outside of that maybe top 3 or 4 team group. What do you think helped you get from maybe being a goal or 2 shy of those teams to then being convincingly the best team at nationals? Because I think it's not really that close. I mean, you never know what happens. A couple breaks go a different way. It's always, things can happen in an ultimate game. You had to beat Carolina on Universe. But how did you all coalesce into this team that looked convincingly like the number 1 team and wins the title?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think like shout out the other teams for like definitely like if a couple things don't go our way, like we aren't coming out on top. But I do agree with your analysis that we were convincingly the best team, and that feels great to like know and showcase. I think. I mean, I think like to your first part about like dropping a couple games at Smoky and Easterns. I think even though we were a couple goals short in those games, it never felt like we were outclassed in a way that like wasn't surmountable. It's not like we were a step behind in any of the like 4 quadrants of the game or things like that. It was just like a couple of, I mean, the Colorado game in consolation, like we were playing 14 guys, and just like a 2 mental lapses in focus in the UMass semi, and then in the start of the Oregon game at Easterns, like that was the deciding factor in those games. And I think we trained really hard in the spring and like used those data points as like things we needed to improve at. And big shout out to the team for like locking in this spring and truly like giving what they had to put us in a position to attack nationals. And I think like we came out and eliminated those lapses of focus and played complete games throughout the tournament. And that was eliminated those like lapses of focus, and that was the difference. And we were able to come out on top. And yeah.
Was there a point where it started to feel like, wow, we really could be the best team? Like, were you surprised integrating so many new players into such important roles on the team, like how good the team was? Like, I could see if I were in your shoes thinking like, oh man, 2026, we're going to be unstoppable. We're going to get, all the rookies are going to get settled in. I'm going to be in my senior year. Like we're going to be totally unstoppable. And then it's 2025. And now you're already starting to look like you could just crush anybody. Was that a surprise? Was that, or even from the jump, did you already feel like, hey, we could go on and win a title right now?
So those thoughts like definitely like creep into your mind. Like, yeah, we'll be even better next year. But I think there was a really good mental focus of like, this is our opportunity now. And we spoke earlier about some of the difficulties the team has gone through in the past couple of years. And I think that was a good point for us to remember, like these chances to win championships are short, and you need to take advantage of them. And we felt like we were in a good position now, and it was, as Tim would say, ours to take. So there was that like focus of like, this is our chance now, let's go do it. And in terms of like integrating the rookies, I think we hit the like shout out the other like captains and coaches for figuring out where to put some of these pieces. We didn't have to move a ton around throughout the season, which was like, it's fine to be adaptable and that was a strength of our team, like especially defensively. But in terms of personnel, we were pretty consistent all year with a few tweaks here and there. And that allowed people, I think, to really settle into their roles and develop that chemistry that we needed, when things were tighter down the stretch. And then also like shout out the rookies for playing the role that was asked of them. Like we have, Nate, like more of an offensive player playing D-line all year. And he like leaned into that and was super successful in that regard. Like also thinking about Ellis, like coming in and just, like being such a reliable piece for us on offense. Like they slotted in seamlessly and did what was asked of them in a great way.
I mean, it was honestly some ridiculously good performances from your rookies. I mean, Nate DeMorgan goes for 10 goals, 20 assists on just 5 turnovers. We saw a great play from Thomas Shope. Newhouse had 6 goals, 8 assists, just 3 turns. People in the Ulti-World Discord are talking about Axel Olsen's assist in the finals of the IO shot as like one of the best throws they've ever seen. Like, how crazy is it to you to see these young players playing at this level where they're looking like all Americans who've been playing in college for 3 years?
Yeah, it's super impressive. I like one of the main things I want to shout out is their poise. That is something that I like wish I had in my first couple years with the team, and they have like both like had the talent on the field, but then also the like mental focus and presence to like show up in those big moments. It speaks to their hard work. I mean, they came in as super talented players who were committed to the sport, but I think have really thrived as part of our team culture and like buying into the hard work, buying into like playing for this team and what it means to be a part of this iteration of Cut. And we had so much confidence, like trying them out there. I mean, I think no one on the team questioned that they were ready for the moment, and they proved they were.
I totally agree that was. I mean, that I flew back with y'all and I had a chance to talk with some of the team members and after the championship, and people are like, "Hey, how come you didn't pick us?" kind of thing.
You're giving you a hard time on the plane.
Totally fair. When you get the medals, even if I've got one of my own, you give me the guff. I get it. And the thing that I kept waiting for were the freshmen to crack. It's like, okay, we're playing them basically every important point of this entire tournament. Sometimes many points in a row. And I was like, you know what? They're 18, they're 19. They're going to crack eventually. And it never came. It was remarkable to me. I mean, you commented about figuring out where to put the pieces, and Manny Eckert in the chat says, yeah, just play Nate and Axel every single point. It's really easy. It's not that complicated. But the faith of the leadership and the captains to put them out there in those big spots when, they can't say they've ever been there. You just can't say that you've been in national semis or finals in front of a crowd like that until you're there. How did the team find the belief? I'm sure there are seniors, juniors, sophomores who were getting more playtime last year or were stars in their own high school communities. And now that's these rookies who are getting the call when the time matters. How do you get the team and the leadership to all buy into believing in such young players who haven't yet been there before?
Yeah, it's a great question. There definitely was some people who were playing more in previous years, took a step back in terms of their on-field role, and truly impressive for them to still put the team first and still be bought in and present. It really felt like all 32 players were focused and invested and doing what they can to support the team, and that allowed the rookies to have that, instill them with a confidence and a trust that they could go out and execute despite the big moment. And I think the second thing is just we practiced hard. At practice, we had intense moments and simulated pressure, and they had continued to perform. I guarded Nate a ton all year and tried my best to contain him, and he would still get open and cook me. So I had no doubt that like he would go out there and get the job done. And I also haven't said anything about Charlie, but like he took some of the harder defensive matchups, crossing sometimes, and that was like no surprise either. Like he would go guard Cullen at practice and play good D on him and be physical and be tight, especially in that Kapolei game. Like he played some great defense. So both shout out the people who did take a step back and were still supporting the team, and then also like it was clear to I think everyone that our rookies were ready, like based on how they played at practice and like their level of hard work and focus. Like it was apparent to the team that we were ready for the moment.
You had I think you had over 30 players on your roster this season.
32.
Were there players who were returners who basically were told they could like stay on the team, but they weren't really going to get much run at big tournaments and at nationals? I mean, it's hard. You can't really find playing time for 32 people.
This was a big conversation topic for the leadership group over the summer. And one of the things we did was like turn this into an advantage for us. One of our biggest like team values all season was strength in numbers, and recognizing that like everyone has a role to contribute. And it truly showed up at nationals. We like did do our best to like be upfront and communicate about like playtime expectations. Like, and it's hard. Like there isn't playtime for 32 people. One of the best moments of nationals, like for our team, like without some of that like external thing, was our last pool play game. We had won the pool, and so we rested our guys against WashU, and people who weren't playing a ton of minutes in the other games got to go out there and ball on the nationals fields. Ended up getting the win. It was like truly such a special game to see both like some of the young guys who weren't playing as much, but then also some of these seniors who like had taken a step back go out there and like probably was going to be their last game, like with meaningful minutes on the field, and like cash in on 4 years of hard work and dedication to the team, like highlights all around. And it felt like a nationals game. Like it was not like we were very clear we weren't going to just like take our cleats off and like not pay attention. Like people were locked in on the sidelines supporting, and to go out there and get the win just was like super special. Like there was tears after that game in like a meaningless game. Like we could have lost the game and nothing would have mattered. And we were like locked in and celebrating each other and celebrating that moment. And that was like a really special way to celebrate all those like contributions that often go unnoticed.
I mean, y'all got to dig deep down the bench in semifinals because putting it to UMass, and suddenly I saw a lot of new faces out there, and they were still scoring, and I was like, okay, yeah. I guess would cut A and cut B, like would cut B make quarters? Like I don't know. Scary how much talent was on the team. There in the chat is starting. There's a question about cut 2017 rookie class versus cut 2025 rookie class. I don't know if you feel like you want to tackle that one, but you could holster it. I want to ask you about the final.
That's
because
no. Make him answer the question.
Oh, you want 20? Okay.
Yeah,
2017 or 2017 rookie class versus 2025 rookie class.
I'll take this rookie class. Got to give it to my boys.
I completely agree. Who was in the 2017 class, Keith? Was that the Joe White year?
Joe White is in the chat. So Joe, can you tell us who's in the 2017 class? Or Declan, if you know?
This year's Carlton rookie class has got to be the best that we've seen at any individual school in a long time. And I think, it's going to be a lot of cut dominance for years to come. I mean, like, are you all – it's hard to repeat. But from a talent perspective, who are you losing this offseason to graduation?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to repeat. Easier in college than club, but the title defense does start now, and we're hungry to go out there and do it again. I think like with that rep under our belt, like we know what it takes, and like the challenge is certainly there for the taking. terms of on field pieces, obviously Daniel really a huge loss, as well as calling like two senior captains this year. And then Bobby also got some run for sure on D1. So pretty much like three on field pieces, but returning a lot of talent. So certainly would say we're in a good spot talent wise, but the senior class like this year, especially exemplified by Daniel and Colin, like my two fellow captains, gave a lot to the team. And so like we'll need to have some guys step up and take on more leadership roles. And I have confidence that it will happen, but that's just definitely an area that like we'll need to get filled. But yeah, on the field, certainly looking in a good spot to attack Nationals 2026.
All right. Now, Charlie, can let me ask about the final, about this matchup with Colorado.
Go ahead.
You come out, you go up 2-0, and it's a pretty clean game. The way that you've been playing, a lot of defensive intensity on both sides, and then you go up 4-2. And at that point, it's just like, I think it's like 10 turnovers between the two teams. Suddenly, like things kind of ground to a halt. What was going on during that point in the game? Like, did that cause any concern for you? That's like, okay, suddenly our offense is getting a little short circuited. What were you thinking about once the game kind of slowed down a bit?
Yeah, the game definitely did slow down a bit. I mean, shout out Colorado for applying like really tight defensive pressure, especially in the handler set. Both with like, some of their switching and marking schemes, as well as just like being tight, physical defenders. I was like remarkably collected for the amount of turns that occurred, including a couple I had, which I thought was, in hindsight, is a good sign. I think that we were so confident and I was so confident despite like probably more turns. I mean, 100% more turns in at one point than we threw in the entire Cal Poly game. And I think, I don't know, in hindsight, it feels good to say we won the clean games, we won the sloppy games. I was, if you had asked me before the Colorado game, like I think I said to one of my teammates, like I'm expecting a pretty clean offensive game. In our one matchup with them, it was, it was like a third place game, but we had trouble getting the disc from them for sure. But we had like played super clean versus in our last like versus Penn State, Cal Poly, and UMass. And so when those turns did start coming, I was like a little surprised, but not flustered or worried. And we did find our rhythm. And also just like shout out our line playing defense as well. Didn't like get necessarily a ton of like hand on disc blocks, but like executing the game plan and limiting what their D wanted to do on a turn. And they gave us the disc back a lot. And, in the end we capitalized, but it was definitely a weird, especially in hindsight, like a weird lot of heavy turnover final.
I mean, both the men's and women's final felt that way, especially after how clean the play was for most of the rest of the tournament, particularly from the teams that were in the final. There was a 10 turnover point on your O point to go up 4-2, and there was an 8 turnover point on their O point to go up or to get back within 1 at 5-4. Very strange game, but then the second half was super clean, so it got there. Do you think it was, what did they do defensively to give you trouble early in that first half? Obviously, you did a great job to get the ball back, but they did throw some wrenches in there.
Yeah, I mean, all credit to like their guys and their D-line working hard and applying pressure. We had like played super clean games before that, and I think had felt like we were winning matchups all over the field in those games prior. And I think to Colorado's credit, they like took away some of our like easier options and forced us to kind of go to plan B and C, which is like what a D-line is looking for. But like our team is deep, and we were able to exploit some of the matchups that we had, we felt like we had favorable matchups in, like running a couple of like counters to some of our plays and such. And I said it before, right? I really do think their handler defense did challenge us. We generate a lot of momentum and connectivity by gaining yards from the handler set and like moving the disc quickly. winning up lines and such, and they like prevented that from happening, both with like I said, individual defenders and like good team wide schemes with their roles. So that was something way to work out.
Do you feel like they were the second best team at this tournament, or did you have more difficulty with maybe Carolina?
So it's a really good question. I think if we had seen Carolina at that point, it wouldn't have been like 15-14. I think our team gained confidence and rhythm throughout the tournament. I'll give it to Colorado. I mean, they made it there. It's tough because like I do like kind of want to go with the score. Like the UNC game was closer, but we had chances in that game that we didn't cash in on. That like on both sides of the ball. Like in a Cal Poly game, our D was 3 for 3 in punching and break chances, and we were not that clean at all in the UNC game. And just like if we had punched in a couple more of those, like the game looks a lot different. So I'll give it to Colorado. Shout out to them for making it that far, especially some of the Seattle guys, Ryan and Tucker. It's great to see, great to match up with them again.
You mentioned the O-line D, and you got to cross over quite a bit over the course of the tournament, but particularly in the final. And I know you drew some matchups with Tobias Brooks, who is another one of the top players in the division. People are going to be talking about him as a potential player of the year. What was it like matching up with him? And I think there was some discussion, some pushback on this, but I thought he had a kind of a subpar final. I thought y'all did a pretty good job against him. What did you do to keep him from really trying to take over the game?
Yeah, I mean, Toby's a great player. Very much enjoyed being a teammate with him on U20, and excited to be a team with him on U24. In that moment, certainly we're going at it though as competitors. I was happy to take the matchup. I mean, know him pretty well, so like felt comfortable, like trying to contain him. One thing, like when approaching a player like him, that just like he is going to touch the disc, and I think for me it wasn't about just like denying him the disc. It was just about letting him touch the disc in bad spots. He caught a lot of swings, a lot of negative passes. It's just harder to attack with your throws off of those. Catching it in those positions. I mean, obviously, like got to mark flatter and prevent him from winding up with his powerful hucks. I felt good about the matchup and was happy with like both how I played and how we executed in taking away what they wanted to do. As an example, like oh, sorry, I'd love to hear a question.
No, you go. You're good.
Okay. Like on that last D point, like he pushed downfield, and like he's big and athletic, and was had to see him, and I was like, I could like commit hard on this and like probably get beat under, or like trust the game plan. We had they had the disc, and like someone we were okay with hucking, and they took the shot, like he almost got it but didn't come down with it, and then we're able to get the disc and punch in the break for the win. So just like trusting the game plan, trusting myself and our team.
Nobody knows that Nathan Morgan wants to throw lefty backhand hucks. I don't understand why. If you were covering him, you would have probably taken away that, but nobody else. I don't get it.
I tried all year to stop him throwing lefty backhand hucks at practice, so easier than it sounds.
He was throwing some dots out there. Manny wants to know, can you summarize the conversations between you and Toby during the game?
Yeah, mostly like, you could have set up here. I probably said a couple words to him. I let Nate probably dug in a little bit as well. Yeah, honestly, like not too much. I think maybe probably that first foul call. Maybe I told him it was clean. Yeah, some good natured competition.
What did you think of the fact that he didn't call a foul on that late jump ball? A bunch of us thought he might have been upheld by the observers if he had called it.
Seemed clean to me. I felt like he jumped early and like certainly was on top. I feel like he had the disc and just kind of didn't secure the catch. Not really sure my contact made a big difference in that play.
Got it. What's the future for this team? You'll be a senior next year. I'm sure you're returning as a captain. How do you prepare this team to try to go back and win again when now the target will be on your back and people are going to be looking at your offense and looking at the tape from this year and figuring out how to make things less comfortable for you all? How do you keep the motivation high for everybody after winning a title?
No doubt, the target will be on our back, but I think it always is. That's something like we talk about with like putting on the jersey with the cut logo on it. Like people are going to give us our best game, and we're better because of that. We are losing some leadership, but like our talent will be in a great spot next year. Like people got some reps over the summer. It's always great to see like come back in the fall and like see some of these guys who I haven't seen in a couple months, like add some new throws, be a step tighter on defense. And I think it is hard to keep the motivation to go out and get there. But like there's guys who are so hungry. I mean, I had lunch with one of my teammates before this, and he says like, I want to go get my own. And that fires me up to keep working hard and keep giving what I can to the team. I do hope to captain again. Our captain's meeting's in a couple of days, so we'll see if they reelect me. But like obviously the mentality does have to change, now that we have reached the top of the mountain. But I think I'm certainly ready to compete for another one and add another championship to the for the program.
I'm convinced. They've got Deep Look's vote. Tell the voters. Deep Look approved.
Thanks, Keith.
Just to close the loop, the 2017 Carlton rookie class was Dylan Lanier, Joe White, Stan Birdsong, Ethan Bloodworth, Chris Padilla, Luke Webb, and Jared Cannell. Aroy he transferred in, so he doesn't count.
Criminally
it's a great
underrated.
Class. There's no doubt it was a great class, but they underperformed, right? Like we waited for that team to win a title, and they didn't make nationals one year. That was crazy. Great class, but 2025. I mean, they come out and they are massive contributors to winning a championship in their first year. So sorry to those guys who are in the chat. Stan, by the way, is in the chat and says he votes 2025. So
oh, Stan's too kind. Yeah, a lot of those guys went on to go play, elite level club, make national teams, and I certainly see that in the future for a lot of our young guys. So excited to see where they can go to.
Okay, wait. Before we let you go, I want to ask a couple of quick hitters. So Keith, get you some quick hitters in your head, real quick. I'll ask Joe's question first. What are your thoughts on Nick Stewart playing Rhino Slam? Did they just drop the roster?
Yeah, great question. Nick asked if I was going to play O for Sockeye, so he can come guard me, but I not too worried.
Manny wants to know when you and Axel are going to fill out the Sockeye season availability survey. Give him a second, Manny. My God!
I wanted a text reminder on Wednesday, but this will do. I need a. I wasn't on the email list for a while, but I'm ready now. Now that cut's done, I'm locked in.
Here's my quick hitter.
Toughest individual defender.
Yeah, that's a good
that you went against this weekend.
It's a good question. Honestly, perhaps the guy who guarded me in the first half of the UNC game. I thought he played good defense on me. I think it's the Croatian international student. Not 100% sure. Was talking to Saul about it. He was quick and physical. I get a lot of matchups who like don't help off. They just kind of play me tight. And he was certainly doing that. I think it just took me a little bit to get into the rhythm of the game there as well. I'll go with him. I'm not even sure his name. Sorry. 28 maybe on UNC. Not too sure.
Jay-Z, Joachim Zvelable, I'm pretty sure that's who you're referring to. Somebody in our Discord said Western Washington has the best top three. I'm sure you're very familiar with those guys. Cut's best three versus Dirt's best three in 3v3.
Let's play this summer.
Play it.
Yeah, shout out those Westerns guys. This is gonna be a great chance to shout out Eli Cedar. Love both those guys. Like played high school with them. I bet someone like 3 years ago that Western was going to make nationals, and felt like that came to fruition when they were taking down top teams. Such a sweet story for them to go out there and win games, on their home fields. A lot of love for Eli and Cedar. Shout out Zoli too. So yeah, big Western fan. And we'll beat them in 3v3.
Stan said, we did massively contribute to winning a championship. Don't do us like that, which, to be fair, they did win in 2017. So we'll see how the 2025 class holds up after this season. All right, let's see. When did you know you were going to win the title?
I always had a lot of faith in this group. Our preparation was top notch, and I don't know. I approach every game thinking we're going to win. So I wasn't thinking like too much down the road. It was pretty one game at a time. One thing I liked was after our both the UNC game and then some of our like wins down the bracket, like I think they said it maybe on stream, but our celebrations like weren't too over the top. Like it was very focused onto the next one. Like I kept telling people like we didn't come here to win this quarters game. I'm trying to think of like a score, and we got broken late in the Colorado game, so like that didn't like it exactly instill a ton of confidence in me. Did we break out a half?
In the Colorado game, yes.
Yeah, the break out a half I think felt good.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was huge. Declan, thank you so much. Congratulations once again, and we look forward to seeing you guys out there again next season.
Thank you, Charlie and Keith, for having me. Appreciate it.
Declan Miller with us here on Deep Look. Keith, Carlton was very impressive this weekend. What do you think was the difference maker for them?
It's hard to argue that the depth that the rookie class afforded them was a key contributor. They were just really sound on both sides of the ball. I was really impressed with the ability of those O-line guys to hold up on defense, to be able to cross over. Like, I think you kind of expect that a little bit from Nate DeMorgan and Declan, but, Ellis Newhouse and Axel Olsen and Charlie Bittler, they really rose to the occasion on defense in particular. And I think that really helped the team because they could really ride that group and their chemistry. The fitness level also, they really took on a big workload. So I thought it was pretty complete. It wasn't necessarily that they ever, I don't feel like they had necessarily a superpower. A lot of teams, you feel like they go out there and like, there's a thing that they can do that nobody else can. And maybe that's some of the like offensive structural stuff that they're doing or really winning at the point of attack on both sides of the ball, their ability to like collectively reset, get up the line, and also pressure teams out of those spaces. Maybe if you're a nerdy, you're thinking that's their superpower, but mostly I think it was their well-roundedness. They just could respond to pretty much any situation. They were super well coached too. Felt like they were often winning the second half against teams with their adjustments, which are just not things you say about a team this young. And like, I can't get it out of my mind that I'm shocked by how much they were able to accomplish despite being such a young team, bringing in so many new parts.
Yeah, it's super impressive. I mean, the level that we saw this weekend out of DeMorgan and Olsen in particular, I just didn't. I can't. I'm having a hard time remembering when we saw rookie performances of this caliber at nationals. Like, we've had some amazing first year players come into the college division and have a big impact for sure, but like DeMorgan is going to be like probably an All-American. He might be an All-American first teamer, Keith. That's crazy. I don't think it's ever happened.
Rare.
I think Randolph got a second team slot his rookie year, if I recall correctly. You're the keeper of the stats.
I gotta pull up the sheet now.
And I said it in the rapid reacts, and I'll say it again here. DeMorgan definitely won Rookie of the Year this weekend. Like, Sam Grossberg, great player. He's going to have a big impact. I think he's going to take Georgia Tech to a national championship or two. I mean the tournament, not the title. Um, and but yeah, no, DeMorgan was incredible. It still stuns me that he didn't make the U20 team initially.
It definitely surprising. You're right that JR was a second teamer, by the way. I'm trying to remember. Claire Trope is the other notable freshman All-American, I think. And she was also a second teamer. So yeah, this is pretty hallowed ground here.
And we'll see what the voters end up deciding. But what a weekend. Let's see. We went pretty deep on the top teams in our rapid reacts, and we're already at about 50 minutes of show here. So I don't know how deep we're going to get today. I will also note that we couldn't align schedules with Mika Kurahashi. She had to work. So we will have Mika on the show next week. Looking forward to talking with her about the amazing UBC run this weekend. But Keith, when you look around the rest of the division, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the 6 teams we talked about coming in as like the championship contending teams looked like the best 6 teams at this tournament. And were you surprised at the way things shook out in any way? I mean, Carolina loses twice on Universe, including to, getting broken. I think in both cases they got broken to lose those games to Carlton and Colorado in quarters.
I think that's right.
And we'll talk about women's division after the break, but the Carolina women's team also losing 3 games on Universe, and they don't even make the bracket. Stunning. Like I think there was a stat. It's been like 25 years or something since the defending national champions didn't make the bracket the next year. Really,
and they were the best returning
stuff.
national champion of any of them. What a weird year.
It was crazy. I think maybe the stat was that both defending D1 national champions, neither team made the bracket the following season, and that's like hasn't happened in a zillion years. But Keith, were you surprised by how things played out, or did this meet your expectations?
Yes, in the sense that like I didn't foresee this type of run for Carlton. I kind of felt like their ceiling was probably semis. I just did not think that the rookies were going to be playing at this level. I think that the thing that surprised me, that didn't surprise me, is that the top teams were so competitive. I think this is kind of like, and this goes across both divisions. It's kind of a weird nationals because the women's division, it was the number 1 and the number 2 seed in the final. In the men's division, right, it's like the semis are the top 4 seeds. But yet it didn't feel like a chalky weekend. You know what I mean?
No.
And that's because the games were competitive. And it felt like a lot of things could have been slightly different. Slow could have completed the comeback against Carlton. UNC could have won any of their 5 Universe games. It just felt like there were some ways the weekend could have turned out differently. And I think that made it compelling and exciting, even while the results were like somewhat chalky. Obviously, Carlton's win, as the 4 seed, when I think some people felt like they were overranked as the 4 seeds. Like, what did this team really won? They had lost against a lot of the top teams at points during the year. But we thought
UMass was a broad team, Keith. Number 1.
Basically, at semifinals, yeah. But prior to that, they did everything you would expect of a 1 seed, right? They went out and kind of clobbered a bunch of teams pretty comfortably, and then absolutely the wheels just totally fell off in semis. That was pretty stunning. That was like one of the most surprising things that happened all weekend.
I mean, it's worth noting, like, I feel like the craziness in the men's division was more down the board than it was at the top end, because we had Utah finishing second in their pool, the 5 seed in Pool A. Western Washington finishing second in their pool, the 5 seed in Pool B, number 18 overall seed. Michigan, the 5 seed in Pool C, makes pre-quarters. And Penn State, makes pre-quarters over Wash U in Pool D. So we have these upsets happening down the board.
made
I mean, how
quarters.
impressive was Western Washington this weekend? I know two 5 seeds in quarters is crazy. I'm guessing it's never happened. It's so hard to look up
Maybe.
stats like this. You basically have to do it manually, but Keith, I don't think it's ever happened. I think it's shockingly rare to even have a 5 seed make quarters.
A great run. And that Penn State team looked really legit as well. Western, I think I've said this multiple times. I've just have me on record for this. I think this is the beginning, not the end for Western. Elijah Diamond, obviously a great player, but I think there's a lot to be excited about for Dirt beyond that, and not just Cedar Hines. So Western had a great run. They definitely were outclassed in quarterfinals. I think that I throw a little water on some of the hype, which I think mostly is coming from like one person associated with Western. But they earned their way to 2 quarters. They did a great. They played well along the way. I do think that we saw kind of the flatness of the field after that top 6 that we were hyped about.
Yes,
like that was the converse side of us being like, okay, there's 6 title contenders, and then after that, all the teams were like fairly comparable. So you get Santa Cruz loses a couple of universe games, and things that totally throws B into chaos. I don't know what was going on in Pool C with suspensions and Aaron Bartlett playing some games and not others, but when he's on the field, he's like the best player on the field. Pool A, total madness. Oregon State, Schmeeting the end. I don't know. It's a wild tournament in the men's division.
I keep talking about it. You got to watch the Oregon State Texas game if you haven't already seen it, and you can catch it on YouTube. It was crazy. Just like straight every possession huck, basically. Really fun. Western Washington is like 1 or 2 good recruiting classes away from being a semis level team. I mean, they have the top end to compete with literally anyone in the division. The problem is that they don't have any depth, and that's why they got, they lost soundly to Oregon and UMass. But they beat those other marginal teams, right? They beat Northeastern, they beat Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
They get the universe win over Santa Cruz in a critical game in pool play. Then they beat Michigan. So they had the answers to those other teams that had like that kind of strong top end, but like maybe not as much depth. They just don't have the ability to go 7 deep even against the best teams in the division. But I think I agree with you. They have a lot of potential down the line.
In Utah, man, I didn't even have them making nationals. They made pre-quarters. They really turned it around this season.
Well, and they have a lot of potential too, don't they? I mean, Selfridge.
Yeah, a lot of those guys are back next year.
Fantastic. He's by the way is the clear top U24 snub. With all due respect to Xavier Fuzat.
Right now, that's deeply true.
But I think especially as more Utah youth kind of pumps into the Zion Curtin team, like with Selfridge and Grayson Retberg and Oscar Brown, they are going to be really solid for years to come. What else, Keith? Anything else you want to touch on the men's division right now?
No, I mean, we've had a chance to chat about some of this stuff. I think we'll probably continue to notice like interesting elements from down the line from these pools and these performances. But we're trying to head to award season. We're already kind of flipping the switch, and then it's going to be high school national invite club. Like, so there's a lot to get to. Semi-pro leagues.
Keith, let me just ask you. I think the most interesting question for me is like D Pody in the men's division this year. Is it just Zeke Thorson? Did he play enough D points? For me, also, I got to be thinking about Ryan Dussert, who was amazing for Carlton.
Yeah, I gotta sit. There's never a quick answer. I feel like with D Pody. Yeah, I know Zeke had a great final and is a great defender. I have voted for him for D Pody before. But it's hard when you play O-line. You should play a lot less defense, and a lot less of the same type of defense where like you're picking your matchups and you're taking away the other team's best player. So I think that's going to limit. I'm gonna have to consider that because Sam Kilgore was kind of their ace defender and deserves a lot of credit for Colorado. You mentioned Dusair, Ben Horsberger had a great defensive season. There's going to be some other guys who merit consideration, and then we'll have to look at some of the O-line guys who are crossing over as well at nationals because that doesn't always work that way. Max Gade, someone shouted out from Cowboys Slow, is another great candidate.
Jack Brown says Daniel Chen also robbed U24.
Did Nate DeMorgan get a look for U24?
I don't remember. But I was just looking back at these U24 teams. Keith, I mean, why hold the tournament? They're going to roll everyone. It's absolutely ridiculously stacked.
France has the women's division Callian winner. So
that is true. That is true. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk some women's division college nationals, UBC's run, how impressive Carlton was, Washington peaking at the right time. More to come on Deep Look.
Got the time today. I'm looking for all of the fades, want all of the smoke, all of my goals inside of the scope. I'm taking the hill, then coming for more. Woke up, didn't even stretch. I'm placing my bets on myself. I be doing the most. Why you always talk like you wanted to go? I ain't gotta speak cause I already know. This ain't been new to me, a news to me. I came out the womb unique. Shine bright like jewelry. Of course, you don't wanna fool with me. I got views to see and gifts to use. I got everything to gain and none to lose, and he can prove. I took his burden and yoke. It's like moose when I hit the moves. You can't tell me anything. I mean anything. That's for sure. I already know. I know my identity. My identity from the go. I told you I already know. You can't tell me anything. I mean anything. That's for sure. I already know. I know my identity.
Welcome back. UBC wins after years of coming close but not being able to get the job done. Really built up to this moment, and they break to win 14-13 over Carlton in a game that it felt like Carlton had control of, Keith. And ultimately, a monster second half from Mika Kurahashi carried them to a 14-13 Universe win. It was a very sloppy game early on and kind of throughout. It was similar to the men's game, just like two great offensive teams that came up against a just super strong defense and maybe just the nerves of the moment. But UBC gets the job done and really feels like this was the best team from start to finish this year.
One blip. And that people were stressed out about UBC. Although I guess one break at the end, and we're not having this conversation, right? It was a really close game, and I do think that some of the sloppiness, or maybe a large part, is due to tremendous defense. Those teams are really bringing it on defense. I think Carlton with some great scheme, and UBC with a really impressive array of athletes who were just all over Carlton's players to the point where they had to have a long conversation about if it was too all over. But deep, like very physical and athletic team, like even when it was toned down to meet where the teams felt like it should be at after the Spirit timeout, like they still were able to apply a lot of pressure. And I think that speaks to just like the quickness and the footwork and the reaction times of the UBC D line. They were very impressive to me, and that group made me feel like UBC was always like in the game. Yeah, it was close, and Carlton, had like a 2-goal lead pretty late, but it always felt to me like UBC was like able to continuously generate pressure in a way that had me believing that they were fully in those games, and that turned out to be true.
I think I was just looking at the advanced stats that we recorded for the final, and Kurahashi had over 500 yards of offense. Even though it didn't feel like she had the same kind of like stunningly dominant impact that she did in the semifinal, where they just completely blitzed Vermont and won the game in literally an hour. In maybe one of the fastest games that I've ever watched between two elite teams. Still so good and came up huge in the biggest spots. I think, for me, clearly Kurahashi is going to be the player of the year. And I know, if you look just at the straight stat line, 4 turnovers doesn't feel like her best game, but in a game with that many turnovers, you kind of can accept that. And I was just so impressed with the mental resilience from this UBC team, which hasn't showed it in the past. Like their problem has been that when they've come up against adversity, they would just completely fold. Remember when they lost to Colorado in semis? Was that 2 years ago? Just like complete collapse. And this time, like, it wasn't going perfectly. They were not in total control of that game. And they had to come back late and end up breaking on Universe. And I mean, they end up getting the last 2 breaks of the game after their first and only break to that point and come on the first point of the game. So they go all those points unable to generate. They were getting plenty of turnovers. That was not the problem, but they could not put it into the end zone. It felt like just like blunder after blunder, throws into the ground, drops, bad decisions, great pressure from Carlton. But they didn't give up in the game, and they walk away USAU champions.
Dogged team, and I think to me that speaks to like the experience level of the players, that they were able to remain really steadfast. Kurahashi, obviously a star player with a lot of big game experience, but they were running out. Claire Wang played the most points of anybody on the team, played 22 points, was playing both ways. Amelie Marshall also basically started to play both ways for the back end of the entire game. Ella Bolin played a lot. And these are all just like experienced players who had a lot of composure on the field. The team seemed really stuck together. Like they really brought each other up in a way that I thought was really meaningful and necessary in such a tight environment. I will say, I think they were a little helped by the crowd. The sideline that the broadcast was on was the UBC sideline, and the other side was the Carlton sideline. So I think it was a little misrepresented, if you're watching the game from home, how much it was a anti-Carlton crowd. But Carlton did play in front of what ultimately were hostile crowds for both their semis and finals. And I'm sure it wore on Syzygy a little bit. And I know it benefited UBC to have so much local support. I could tell that was helpful for them.
Let me take a quick aside here and say what a great venue for the college championships. What more can you ask for? I mean, you have so many Frisbee people in the area between Seattle and British Columbia and Vancouver, which, are basically equidistant from where we played the tournament, about hour and a half. I don't know how much time it takes across the Canadian border these days, but
depends
the
on
grass
if you got
field,
a British camera guy with you or not.
the grass field for finals with beautifully dressed for ultimate. I feel like we need to find a way to have all of our big games on grass fields without a lot of additional nonsense logos, lines. I know it's a lot to ask, but I have to say, watching Club Nationals on the ugliest turf field of all time it sucks. it sucks.
I am shocked by how big a difference the lines makes. Like I'm
it makes
maybe
a
I'm
big
just so
difference.
used to it, football lines, but man, it's more fun to watch without the stupid. I wouldn't mind a few more yardage ticks on the field. I
Well-
wouldn't be like totally upset about that. I just don't need the full
You could
football
do that.
lines. Yeah, so we
The,
could.
the MLU got this right back, 10 years ago. They have like some like small hash marks every 10ish yards or something. Maybe I don't know. I forget exactly how they did it, but it looked fantastic. And I think we could bring something like that to Ultimate.
A dotted line across midfield and it would like be totally reasonable to me.
Sure.
But which would you rather have? Grass fields or nighttime finals? Like if you only pick one.
Oh, nighttime finals. I still my number one.
Yeah, I think me too.
I think both of the finals would have been better. They would have been better if they were played at night. And is that rational? Is that logical? No. But is it true? Yes.
100%. I mean,
there's no way there would have been that many turnovers if the game's at night.
I mean, if there were, we would have been hyped about it. It would have been like, oh my God, the defense is killing it. I mean, Washington Carlton semifinal was the one under the lights, and it by far had the best energy. And yeah, that probably is mostly due to the crowd being raucous, but I think that's part of it. The crowd gets really ready to go at night. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just a better atmosphere. And that game was the most fun game of the weekend. No, not close. Not close.
Yeah, I think the Carlton Washington 8 p.m. start game is probably one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever produced a game in. I mean, the sound, the look of the field, the like slow sunset at northern latitudes as we're getting towards, the summer solstice. Like it was unbelievable. And of course the quality of the game, especially in the first half, you're not going to see that density of high level athleticism and plays in even most club games at the high level. Just monster plays all over the place. And, you kind of, that's what made finals, which ultimately went to universe, feel like a little bit of a letdown because the quality of play in that game was so high in semis. And the quality of UBC's win over Vermont. I mean, the game was boring, but UBC was clinical. And then we kind of got a sloppy final, but that's how it goes when you have great defensive teams, right?
And a little bit of nerves, I think. I think both teams played a little nervous in the beginning. There were definitely like some drops and throwaways as teams like kind of got their feet underneath them, especially given that Carlton singing same song, running out a bunch of rookies on their starting line. No surprise that was the case. But we got a transcendent Jagal Gelfin showing on semis evening. Then heroics from Mika Kurahashi in the final. You had really like a kind of a Warriors game with some of the players having to go both ways in the end and like really having to grit it out. There's a lot of great drama. What do you make, Charlie, of the conversation around the physicality and what resulted in a spirit timeout during the final? I mean, I can't think of very few spirit timeouts I've seen at high level play. I ended up telling somebody the story of the Russia-Japan game, but in the final at Nationals, it's just on people. I was explaining to people on the sideline who had never seen an upside down T before. They didn't know what it meant. So they're like, people were saying, is there technical? Like, what's happening? And it's like, oh, it's a spirit timeout. It was that unfamiliar to people.
My read on it was, so Carlton was complaining a lot to the observers. I mean, we saw on the broadcast Lou Burris animated talking to observers after multiple points in the first half. And it sort of culminates in the spirit timeout. Now, I have no idea what was said on the sidelines and whatnot. Was the game physical? Absolutely. Was it perhaps beyond the level of acceptable physicality? Well, clearly in the minds of at least some players and coaches, yes. My issue with it is that Carlton was dishing it right back to UBC. I didn't feel like the game was imbalanced in terms of physicality. And even going into after the spirit timeout in the second half, I felt like Carlton was being very physical with UBC, and there were clear and obvious fouls happening. It's these, when we get to the highest level, we see this happening, right? US versus Colombia at Worlds in the women's division. That game was incredibly physical. And I think Colombia maybe feels like the US went too far. I mean, we saw Mauricio Moore puts out this like massive 5-minute Instagram thing calling the US basically cheaters for playing too physical. And I I guess to me it's like I'm totally okay with a spirit timeout, especially if it's going to bring the temperature down in the game. And it may be the best mechanism for like having that happen because you want to basically be like, hey, you feel like it's getting out of hand. And the observers weren't really stepping in and giving out cards or anything because it never really crossed the boundary into like dangerous levels of play. I think if they had just played at that level the whole game and both teams had been okay with it, it would have been like a highly physical but like acceptable contest. I'm a little unsure about Carlton seeming like they were like complaining to the refs the whole game when they were also dishing it back.
I got the sense from on the field that the spirit timeout maybe preempted things getting like more problematic. I know I saw particularly one Carlton player and a UBC player in a fairly animated conversation in which they started to reenact the physicality that was happening on the field, and they were separated before that escalated. But you could easily see how two players saying, "You were pushing me like this," well, you were pushing me like this, could turn into a altercation that would have gone beyond what was appropriate in play. And I think that to me was like the final straw where they were like, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. Because I think the problem wasn't necessarily like obviously the level of physicality was the driving force, but I think there was a communication disconnect where because it wasn't like there were a ton of stoppages. I think Carlton felt like we can't call these fouls because they're disadvantageous to us. Like a lot of them were like really tight coverage. Carlton player catches the disc and then they get run into on the mark. And it would have been advantageous to UBC for Carlton to be calling those fouls. So I think like my read on it was Carlton felt like they were giving UBC feedback saying, hey, this is too physical, and UBC wasn't responding. And so Carlton responded by also being physical, but still saying the game is too physical. I think that also we still don't know really whether or not Carlton maybe came to the circle and said the game is too physical from us and you. Let's bring it back. I definitely feel like the spirit timeout did help. I thought that things were like a little dicey in the first half. There was a lot of post-catch contact after people were like trying to slow down to set their feet. And that is not a one-team thing. I thought it was a little dicey in the first half. And if teams want to pick to play that way, that's okay. But if one team is saying, hey, this is not going to work for us, then teams have to figure out a way to work through that. And I think they did. I think we got a much cleaner second half. So cooler heads perhaps prevailing there. And overall, I was worried that the chirpiness that in the men's division I had seen be somewhat prevalent through the first rounds of pool play and bracket play were going to lead to potential issues down the line. And commendable that the teams, I felt like those were very spirited bracket games down the stretch. I thought we might run into some problems that never came up.
Shout out to Washington coming in the 6th seed. Didn't really look like they were title contenders during the season. Clearly the third best team at the tournament. And I think they were helped a little bit by a very raucous pro-Washington crowd for that semi against Carlton. And ultimately, their strength was their weakness in that game. Their strength is that they have a huge roster of quality players. Like they can go 20 deep and get high-level play out of those 20. But they didn't quite have that absolute elite top-end player like a Gelfand to kind of carry them through. Now, with that said, Lauren Gadu was amazing this weekend. 12 goals, 6 assists, 9 blocks on just 6 turnovers. But I think the offensive firepower that we saw from Gelfand as a thrower was kind of the difference maker in the game at the end of the day. Between otherwise like two very even rosters.
I totally agree. I mean, maybe I watch too much basketball, but you got to have a creator, and Washington had everything else really. Like they had a tremendous defense, they had really strong receivers who could get downfield and a lot of size, and they had a lot of quick players who could execute well. but they just didn't have somebody who I felt like really could take over the game from the backfield, and they were kind of reliant on the system to generate that. I do think that Isabel Farr is going to turn into that player, but is just a rookie right now, and I think that would have been a bit more too much to ask of her against the level of defense that they were seeing. Now, the system was good enough to carry them past a great defensive team like Colorado, and the defense. I mean, this was a defense-first team, this Washington team. Super athletic, and they could ride that system against pretty much anybody else. But at the highest levels, they needed somebody who could win and create that advantage around the line of scrimmage, and they just didn't. I don't feel like they had that against Carlton.
I feel like most seasons, UNC won the championship by having an elite offensive unit that rarely got broken. This season felt about defense. It was defense. UBC's defense is probably the best we've seen in the division in 5-6 years. They were nasty. But all the teams that went far in this tournament, Carlton, Washington, Colorado, great defenses. I saw almost nothing of Vermont, so I don't want to speak on how they played because all I saw them was them getting shellacked by UBC. I just happened not to ever have them on my field. But what would you say about them, Keith? Did they also show up with big defense?
I think that they had the capability. I think they were probably the least consistent defense of that group, but they had a lot of great athleticism as Vermont and size, like Vermont always seems to. So I'm sure they could turn up on defense.
What a great tournament for them overall. I mean, I know they got blown out in semis, but they really overachieved, I feel like, relative to what we saw from them for the rest of the season. And God, it must have felt good for them to beat Tufts in quarters.
Yeah. And in a game that it looked like it could have gone away from them. I mean, Tufts was taking control late in the game. And interesting, as Scott Dunham in the chat notes, Tufts was the team with the super clean O-line and the primary creator. And they get past Vermont.
They underperformed the whole weekend. They never looked like they had the answers to win this tournament. Tufts led that game 10-7. Vermont scored 4 in a row to make it 11-10. Then went up 13-11 before Tufts ended up breaking to get it to 14-14, and Vermont won on offense 15-14.
They showed something I didn't know that this Vermont team had in them. Like they gritted out some really tough wins, and I had kind of lost faith that Ruckus was capable of that.
Well, we're going to talk more about college nationals on next week's show. Right now, we are going to turn our attention to semi-pro small ball. So let's call up, I don't know, where do we want to start, Keith? Western Ultimate League wrapped up their season, right? We're ready for championship weekend now?
Yeah, and I think we'll probably talk about championship weekend on next week's show. So not a ton to say here. We got the late clash between your Titanic clash, your Super Bloom versus Alpenglow. There were two lightning delays that totaled 3 hours in the game. It was 10-7 Alpenglow at home. It didn't feel like a super representative game of what those teams could do with the weird breaks between and them playing 2/3 of the game or something like that. So kind of a weird game. Hard to feel like it tells us much, but it does give us our championship weekend setup, which is going to be Colorado versus the Bay and Super Balloon versus Seattle. And I think everybody's going to underrate the Bay's chances, even if I still might end up picking the Alpenglow. I feel like this is kind of anybody's to win, given that the Falcons are at home. And they're the one team that seems like they could play up to the big three.
We'll make our picks and break it all down on next week's show, but no surprises here. These were the teams that were locked in already, and so there's your championship weekend coming up in Oakland, June 7th and 8th. Let's talk PUL. My mouse stopped working. I can't click on the link, but let's pull up the games. Atlanta over Nashville 17-10, and we have another week of play coming up, right? We got one more week of regular season. Yep. And so, yeah, Keith, what else happened this weekend?
This past weekend, not a ton of super notable games. I think we missed like DC and Raleigh, where DC got the win with the comeback in 2 weeks ago. So I think we missed a couple of games that might have felt like I know you saw Atlanta and New York play in what was like what was potentially going to be one of the biggest upsets of the season, but New
That
York
was
able to pull
wild.
that out.
That game was
So
crazy.
I feel like we missed out on a couple weeks with all the college national stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the pro leagues could consider just taking this weekend off, but yeah, you see that in the NBA, right? They don't schedule games over the college championship game. But yeah, I get it. It's hard to skip multiple weekends in a season, but just one game in the PUL this past week. So coming up, we do have some big games on deck. Surge playing the Strike and in a meaningful game. And then Surge Monarchs. We got Shadow Torch this weekend and Radiance Nightshade. And then in week 10, the Indy Red play the Surge in what
And
could
the
be
gridlock.
and the Gridlock. That Red Surge game, though, is going to be important because right now the Reds sitting at 3-1 have a chance to get a top 2 spot and get into championship weekend if they beat that Surge team. So
Yep,
keep an eye on
that's
that one.
definitely the big game to watch from here on out. Is that one and probably accessory the New York game.
UFA this past weekend. We had some pretty interesting results. San Diego goes on the road, beats Carolina in Carolina 26-25. So Carolina down bad right now. They are 0-4. New York beats Philly, Keith. So how does that change the East?
I tell you, it keeps Boston undefeated. They're still in first. Everybody, I feel like I got poo-pooed when I was like, "Oh, Boston might be the best team." Well, now they're 4-0. So, don't ask me about Toronto.
I didn't poo-poo you. Maybe Evan Lepler poo-pooed you.
I feel like I got some. Now Atlanta though might be the best team, right?
Atlanta's awesome. But they have their
Boston,
biggest test. They have their biggest test of the season coming up this weekend. They're going on the road to Minnesota. I'll be on the call with Evan Lepler on Friday night, live on YouTube. So that's going to be must-watch TV.
Chicago just started or something, so who knows how good they are.
Yeah, they're 1-0. It's ridiculous. I mean, they held Minnesota to 11 goals in their win over Minnesota.
You left out that Atlanta's playing Chicago after they play Minnesota, so maybe that's their biggest test.
It's a very difficult road trip, that's for sure. Otherwise, maybe not too many surprises. Salt Lake over Seattle. Oregon beats Vegas by 1. So Vegas not getting into the win column. That was probably their best chance to win at home against Oregon.
They changed coaches. They brought in
Matt Bode fired.
Dan Silverstein.
They canned him. And
they almost got a win.
Season. I can't wait to hear the story on this one. I mean, what in the world? It's already a comedy franchise. No surprise. Minnesota destroys Pittsburgh. Indy over Detroit. Oakland still undefeated in the West as they beat Seattle by 5. Atlanta over San Diego in San Diego's back-to-back. And Colorado crushing Oregon by 10. Pretty chalky week, except maybe for Empire over Philly, and in double overtime, San Diego over Carolina.
Yeah, mostly.
Question of the week. What do we got, Keith?
Right. This week's question of the week: do you think resets should be counted against throwing metrics like yardage, i.e., UFA players have negative yards, like if they throw backwards, or should it be an absolute value? It doesn't count against you. Maybe it's like rush QB sacks don't count against your rushing yards in the NFL. I think they do in college. It's one of the two.
I don't think
I'm adding that part to the question. I am more on the side of any yards are valuable yards, but does it speak to the difficulty of the throws attempted? What do you think? Should backwards throws, negative yards count against your total? And should you have an absolute value?
Yes. I mean, if you want to have a separate category for like upfield and backfield throwing yards, where you essentially apply the absolute value of the negative yards and put it in its own column, I would be okay with that. But I think from an aggregate yardage perspective, it is relevant when you are advancing the disc up the field versus you are throwing it backwards. It muddies the waters otherwise. I think like you have to be knowledgeable about how like a reset handler, for instance, plays the game, or a very strong cutter who does not throw upfield much. Like if they have negative 25 yards at the end of the game as a thrower, that doesn't mean that they're a bad player. Like you need to understand the context of the way the team plays. But I don't think you can just sort of wipe it away. Like throwing negative passes are generally going to be resets. So that's not nearly as challenging of a throw in most cases as throwing an upfield pass, even a 7 to 10 yard under. So I have no issues whatsoever with keeping them negative.
Maybe I'll have to ask our resident advanced statistician, our math guy, Paul Vertzak, what his thoughts are. But I pretty much share your opinion on the matter.
I mean, I do think that, understanding different styles of play and evaluating different players who throw a lot of negative yardage passes and being able to talk about that as a group and like what makes them good as a group of players is super relevant. Because if they're getting a ton of touches, they're probably doing useful things for the offense.
It is. I have not yet figured out a way to place the value numerically on different types of throws that in a like systemic way that makes sense. How do you code the value of a throw in different contexts? In some cases, throwing 5 yards horizontally is like literally the best throw you could make. In some cases, it's garbage. So how do you decide which of those is which and assign it numerically? I've yet to uncover the best way to try and do that.
Yeah. All right. That is going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to hear more of our thoughts on the College Nationals, get yourself a subscription. Any level can get you access to the bonus subscriber segments that we do live in the Discord every single week. And for Keith Raynor, I am Charlie Eisenhood signing off. We'll see you next Tuesday at noon at our regularly scheduled time. We should have Mika Kurahashi on the show to talk about her win at the college championships. Talk to you then. Nick's down bad, Keith.
Who should I take first in my summer league? Anybody got any ideas?
Send me the list.